Very much, Renee. The Oregon School Activities Association turned 100 this past season, and through that century, we've seen great athletes from all corners of the state. 50 years ago, Steve Prefontaine was running OSAA events long before he became the legend we know today. On the anniversary of his final high school state meet, take a trip back to 1969 with us, along with the people that knew Pre the best. Even all these years later, the track at Marshfield High School still bears the name of its prodigal son.
This was his home. This is the track he started on. It was the track that he ended his life on, because this is where we had the funeral.
Steve Prefontaine is many things now. The rebel, the icon, the near mythical figure in the running world.
Steve was special. He's bigger than life. He's a legend.
1975 marked an end to a chapter in the book of Pre. But 6 years earlier, in Pre's final year in high school, the legend was just starting to be written.
At that time, Coos Bay was the world's largest lumber shipping port.
It was a logging, longshoring, fishing community.
The labor unions were strong. We had mills along the bay, and it was kind of a boom town at that time.
In Coos Bay, you knew almost everybody in town.
And as you can see now, the bay is pretty quiet as far as manufacturing is concerned.
In spite of the decades-long economic downturn of the area, Coos Bay's workmanlike culture has persisted.
If you wanted something, you had to work hard for it.
That was the mentality of the community, of the kids. And obviously athletics was huge.
A lot of the kids, that were competing in athletics in those days were from mill families, fishermen, that sort of thing. So they were rough kids. They're not rough, but hard competing kids.
If you wanted to be someone who was noted around town, you became an athlete.
The industries and the area inspired many, including a kid growing up on the corner of 9th Street in Elrod by the name of Steve Prefontaine.
That environment, hardworking people, I think, made for stronger people, both physically and mentally.
The coaching staff at Marshfield was dominated by World War II vets. They were very goal-oriented. They were very, of course, they were very strict.
That certainly had an influence on his personality, I'm sure, because that's just the personality of the town.
And it wasn't just the mental environment. The actual physical area of Coos Bay made for a distance runner's dream.
We had hills, we had beach, we had the dunes. We could go up the river and have 80 degrees, or we could run on the coast and have 50 degrees and wind, and we'd have all kinds of conditions to run in, so it was a great place to train.
Those things contributed to the mentality that he had, that sort of tough mentality.
Steve's first 2 years running track and cross country at Marshfield was met with moderate success. But even by Coos Bay standards, his work ethic was already becoming legendary.
It was not, a half-hearted effort ever for him. Even in workouts, we would be running intervals, and he never wanted any of his teammates to finish an interval ahead of him.
He had a unique DNA and a unique community DNA that caused him to want to be the best in the world.
And that energy was channeled into excellence with the help of coaches Walt McClure and Phil Persian, with some assistance from the University of Oregon.
I would credit Walt McClure as having really set the basis for Steve's future achievements.
He ran at University of Oregon, and his father went to the Olympics.
McClure and Bowerman had a relationship.
Maybe Bill Bowerman didn't come to our house, but Bill Dellinger did, and they sent some recruits from Oregon to run with Steve.
We started doing their workouts. The first time we ever did that, I got sick. I got physically sick, and I remember Pre was making fun of me because I was heaving, and after about 3 or 4 more 330s, he was heaving.
Walt was talking to Bowerman, and when he realized the kind of talent that Steve was, or the potential that Steve had,
and he looked at me and he said, if that young man doesn't go on, them do great things, I would have been the greatest disservice to him.
He was concerned about screwing it up, and he didn't screw it up.
Part of the Bowerman program involved outlining goals and target times, and Steve had big plans for his senior year.
He was, of course, 4 and 840 and 152 or something, I think.
He improved so much between his junior and his senior year. I mean, it went from, what, 9:17 or something in the 2 mile down to 8:41.
The workouts that we did in winter track it was 2 mile, mile, and half mile. And we had a date pace, which is what we could run at that time, and a goal pace. And Priest's goal pace was under the 2 mile record.
Steve had already set the Oregon high school state record for the 2 mile his junior year. So coming back in his final year at Marshfield, he wanted to prove he was the best in the United States.
I think probably his senior year of high school, the mystique was happening at that point.
When everything really changed was when he set the national high school 2 mile record. And then the phone rang off the hook.
Part 2 will air tomorrow right here on KZI 9 News at 6.